I think when you start out, you know, the hype of being at the big game and the noise and the idea that you're at a Super Bowl is great. But when you're kneeling down there in the corner, all that matters is whether you get the picture or not. My name is Al Thielmans. I'm a staff photographer at Sports Illustrated.
I'm John Beaver with Sports Illustrated.
Hi, I'm Damian Strohmeyer from Sports Illustrated magazine.
I'm Simon Brutti, and I'm a Sports Illustrated photographer.
I'm down here in New Orleans, Louisiana for the BCS championship game, and we're going to see if Alabama and LSU can make it a little bit more exciting this time.
So there are 5 photographers here, and we are part of a team. The guys on the field will be split up and will take different sides of the field, or maybe they'll take different end zones. But then it's really kind of freewheeling. As long as you know where the other guys are, you're good to go and to do what you do best.
At this game, we're really at the mercy of the action. They have us in each corner set up, and generally the same equipment as everybody else.
So I'm in charge of a sideline, but I know where everyone else is. It takes a lot of pressure off you. You just got to cover your area.
You know, we have a sense about where we need to go to get the game covered, and we work as a team.
There's a lot of risk taking and just educated guesses goes into where you position yourself and you know what you end up getting.
So I'm shooting in the catwalk because for me it gives a really unique perspective to the game. And instead of being on the field competing against 250 other photographers, I'm on my own, competing with myself. There's a unique perspective and also an exclusive image.
What makes an interesting image? Unfortunately, a lot of times it's luck. I think that you've got to be prepared. You've got to know your subject, what's going on at the game, what's supposed to happen at the game, what's the most unlikely scenario at the game, and then you know you want to position yourselves accordingly. But a lot of times what happens is you've just got to be lucky. You've got to have that fumble happen towards you, not away from you. The winning touchdown happen in your corner, not the other corner. And you know, not everybody likes to talk about that because there is a lot of luck involved.
The best sports pictures, I think, are the ones with something showing in the face, some emotion of the player. There's so many good sports pictures these days that something's got to stand out. So it's either generally something that isn't eye level, normal sizing. It's like either high, low, tight, or wide.
What makes a great picture, I think you almost kind of can tell only after they've been made. You know, once they're all laid out on the table, you're like, this is the most relevant picture. And then maybe the guy 3 spots down from you has the slightly better angle of the key picture. And that's just the reality of what we do.
If you're shooting, you know, a big football game, they push you back on the sidelines, and to get into the action, you need a 300 or a 400 mil at the minimum. A 300 2.8, a 400 2.8, 500 2.8, 600 f4. I mean, there you go. Those are the lenses that you need to shoot sports.
We can't predict what's going to happen, but that's why we have 5 cameras and 5 different lenses.
I always perceive shooting football in terms of like crescents. So I shoot a crescent with my 50 millimeter, 400 millimeter, and then a 600 millimeter. And there's dead spots in there. There's dead spots that you can't cover with those lenses.
You need something wide for down by the goal line. Generally a 70 to 200s down there, and a 24-70 for real close.
You have to be comfortable transitioning from one lens to the other.
For the long telephoto lenses, you should have a monopod, unless you're Superman. So use a monopod for anything 300 and up. Don't use a monopod for a zoom lens.
Do I prefer shooting indoors or outdoors? Well, it never rains indoors, which is nice. It doesn't get cold indoors, which is nice. Shooting in the rain, it's hard, but boy, man, you got the mud splashing and the rain bouncing off of helmets, and you know, guys are fumbling because it's wet. It does add something to it. It's harder, and as you get older, it's unpleasant.
Snow and mud and all those rain present opportunities that you don't have in fair weather. Could I say I'm happy about it? I'm there? Well, I don't know. Probably not. I mean, it's like it's pretty uncomfortable, but after it's all done, you say, oh, well, this is pretty interesting.
I like shooting outside because you have the chance, the possibility of working with the light and the shadows. If you're shooting in a dome, there is pretty much zero chance of the elements getting involved in your photography. If you're outside, you want the elements to be involved because it's going to create such a great photograph, and that's what you're after ultimately.
Tomorrow night, there's going to be a real pressure to get cards in, get them edited, make a folder of selects, and I'm sure that at the magazine up in New York, they're going to be laying out as we go along.
So the way Sports Illustrated have it set up is that I take the card out of the back of the camera, and on a big game like the BCS Championship Final, there is a number of technicians here who deal with the transmission. They will transmit the whole take to New York where the office is, and a photo editor will go through every frame there. They will make their select and then request the raw files from there. And they can be published pretty much instantaneously, and that's the basics of how the transmission works.
The quantum leap in the last 10 years is just, it was basically, we started shooting digital in 2000 or 2002, so it's been 10 years now. It's an enormous jump.
Back then with film, your exposure had to be a lot closer on. Had to be within a third of a stop, otherwise it was unpublishable. We shoot JPEG and RAW both, and with the raw file, you can save a lot of pictures.
I mean, we're shooting pictures at night that rival pictures we're shooting in broad daylight. When I started in the 80s, we were shooting film that was so much better than the guys in the 70s had, and we were like, oh my God, can you believe you were shooting on this film in the 70s, and look what we're shooting with now.
The difference between film and digital, I mean, it's night and day these days, because you're not second guessing yourself constantly as you were with film.
I think what reviewing your pictures gives you is you're able to see if something's going wrong. If there's something wrong with your camera or your lens, you're going to know it right away. You shoot film, you'd shoot an entire take, you wouldn't know if anything went wrong. Your editor would call you the next day and say, oh, you got a problem.
Oh no, it's definitely made things easier, but it's made things easier for everybody. Digital has brought photography to the masses. I mean, it's definitely, everybody's a photographer now. I think what you have to look at is photography better now than it was pre-digital, and the bottom line is it's definitely better.
I think you have a little more idea now when you're shooting and seeing the back of your camera what you have. Back when you shot film, send the film out unprocessed, have no idea if it's sharp or anything, and then when you get the magazine, first of all, if you see a cover, is that mine? That's mine. Sometimes they don't tell you.
At the stage of the career that all of our photographers are at, the competition for the cover is the biggest, always. I mean, that's what you're most concerned about, is getting the cover.
I've been doing this with SI for over 20 years, and it's still exciting to get a cover, get a really great picture as a double truck. That excitement doesn't go away.
You know it's a good photograph when you see it on the back of the camera. I mean, obviously opening up the magazine a week later and looking at it, or looking at it on the iPad or on one of the electronic issues. It's great. It's great to see it. It's great to see your name by it.
I think you would find it interesting to hear the Sports Illustrated photographers talk at halftime of any football game. We never have any pictures. We're never ever happy with what we have. It's always like, I didn't have this, I didn't have that. No, this game is awful. I'm not getting anything. The reality is, of course, is far different from that.
It's funny how you can go to games and people ask you how you did after the game, and usually you're wrong on that. You say, I thought I had a great game, and the editors say you didn't, or you think you had nothing, and the editors say you had a great game. So it's really hard to predict.
The thing about sports photography is you can never get it all. It's impossible. You can't possibly be everywhere. You can't possibly have perfect timing to get every single play.
To the average photographer that wants to do this for a living, you got to follow your dreams first and foremost. You got to do what's in your heart. If you're doing what's in your heart, you don't have to make as much money as just getting a job and paying the bills. If you're happy doing what you're doing, if getting up in the morning is never a chore, if going to work is never a chore, it's a great feeling, and money becomes secondary. But you do eventually have to pay the bills, and if you have a family, it can't be all playtime.
It's a difficult thing to get into. It's very expensive to get into. You have to be lucky along the way. But if you're good enough and you have enough drive and talent, you'll find a way to get in.
The competition's tough, which means you have to keep your standards incredibly high. And that, obviously by looking at images in Sports Illustrated, will give you a sense of what is a great sports photograph and what kind of standard you need to reach to get to that level.
but you have to find that passion. You have to figure out how to take that passion and make yourself a professional and compete at every level you're at. Now I'm competing at the highest level now, but I used to compete at the lowest level, and every step you have to have a plan.
The most important thing is when you get a credential and you're down on the field, you have as good a shot as anybody else to get the great action picture from that game. And that's what you should keep in mind.